So what I'm going to do is ask each of you to just introduce yourself, say where you work, and then we'll get started.
Hey, I'm Rusty Powers. I work for Soundrop, which is a distribution company focused on cover song licensing and fast releases for content creators.
I'm Kevin Breuner. I'm the SVP of Artist Engagement and Education at CD Baby. And we're based here in Portland and happy to be here tonight.
I'm Allison. I'm the head of artist marketing at Soundcloud, and I work on our creator side of the business, which is an independent distributor.
Awesome. So as some of you guys know, because you're old enough, there used to be these things called records. And they used to be on store shelves, like at Music Millennium and other awesome record stores. And the way that an artist got his or her CD or their CD onto one of those record shelves was a pretty difficult, closed process, right? Like there were a lot of gatekeepers. You had to have a label, and the label had to have a distributor, and the distributor got you onto the store shelves. Then we had this internet revolution that we're all familiar with. Everybody had a panic attack for about a year and a half. And then things changed completely. And the biggest thing that changed was the gatekeepers changed completely. You can now be an artist. I know there's lots of independent musicians in the audience. And now you can get your music to the points of sale, which are now things that are not necessarily store shelves, with the push of a button and with the help of people like this. So it has changed the landscape dramatically for good and sort of for ill, right? Not 100% perfect. So let's talk a little bit about what the landscape of independent distribution looks like in 2022, because obviously over the last 11 years that has changed a lot too. Do you want to get us started, Kevin? Because you've been around.
Yes. Yeah, I just realized that CD Baby is coming up on its 25th year anniversary, which is insane to think about. And I've been there for almost 17. And I think what's amazing, first off, being in Portland, we travel all over and speak to all sorts of artists, but it's amazing how much Portland has infused itself into CD Baby and just our culture and just our outlook on music distribution in general. I know when I started there, we had this huge warehouse full of CDs. We still have that warehouse because we still sell vinyl and CDs and everything. But it was just all these passionate artists that just love the fact that anyone could get their music out there. And that's one of the things that drew me to CD Baby, the idea that the tide has changed where all these gatekeepers that existed were no longer important for you to just connect directly with fans. And to me, that's been the spirit of CD Baby from when I came across it, trying to get an independent band out that I was playing in at the time. And it's just grown from there to be about just helping artists monetize fully. And there's so many things that have changed since that time, but to me, the spirit's still very much the same.
So SoundCloud is an interesting example because SoundCloud really was a different kind of platform. It was like a fan community platform as well as just a means to distribution, and that has changed over time as well. Did you want to speak a little bit to where you guys are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for sure, SoundCloud is a community. It's almost like a social network, and that's how we sort of talk about it to the independent artists that we work with. I think independent distribution is incredible, and it definitely changed the game, like you just said, but it's also created a lot of noise, and it's really difficult for artists to break through that noise. And what's nice about SoundCloud is that because it is a community-based platform, we allow artists to connect directly with their fans right there on the platform and connect with each other, with other artists, and sort of try to cultivate that community vibe. And that's what we're doing right now, offering both distribution and tools, services, things that artists need to develop and to work on their careers and hopefully make a living as a musician. That's definitely it's a huge effort that we've been working on for the last couple of years, and we'll continue to work on over the next couple of years and forever, really, because it continues to change so drastically.
So now YouTube is like a little bit of a different animal, and you guys work a lot with YouTube. So do you want to tell us like how you guys operate?
Yeah, absolutely. So Soundrop focuses on the content creator, and so we lean heavily into people that have a release schedule that's much faster than, say, the traditional, you write a record, you wait 18 months, vinyl gets pressed, you go on tour, you do it all over again. For us, our creators are, it's 1 week, it's 2 weeks, it's a single track. And then, you put out 4 or 5 tracks, you have an EP. You put out those, another 5 tracks, then you release it as an album, right? So it's like a constant schedule of releasing content. And then on top of just getting it on Spotify, I'm sure everybody else does this as well, but, we focus on making sure our music is available on Instagram and on TikTok and, these new media places where all of the fans are. And so, that's really what Soundrop leans into.
So this just crossed my mind. In case you guys haven't gotten this about me, I'm like I'm just talking here. I don't have like a ton of questions, but I'm just really interested in this issue, so I'm always, up for talking about stuff like this. But I have recently heard that the way that people can consume music these days is that they treat TikTok like the radio, right? Like you hear a song on TikTok, and then you go buy it, like you were going to Music Millennium on Spotify. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, they also get news on TikTok, which is very strange. But you watch a funny video or you watch, somebody applying makeup and it's a really cool song in the background, and, maybe if it's a Soundrop song, then it's also a cover song. And so you'll see who the name of the artist is, maybe you can click through, maybe you can find it.
Well, one thing that's, when you mentioned radio, that's interesting to me is that I was on a panel with somebody from TikTok, and they were explaining how their algorithm works completely different than what we've kind of known from social media, and that it's always trying to find an audience for whatever video you post, and you can post as much as you want. And a lot of the artists I've seen having success there, it's almost like, I think the people who consume their content look at it like radio. Every time I open up, I'm going to hear the song by that artist, and maybe a different version, or I'm going to keep hearing that. And yeah, a lot of the younger audiences are consuming, that's their radio. I've got a daughter that's almost 15, and I was telling Portia before this, my adapter on my iPod or my iPhone wasn't working to play on the car, and I turned on FM radio, and she said, "You can listen to music there?" Because I've never ever played FM radio for her before. It was just one of those things like, oh my gosh, this is a totally different world of how people are consuming content.
Oh man, yeah, wow. I would just add that, I think TikTok is a discovery platform the same way that I suppose radio, it was a discovery platform, and usually the discovery platform or area or whatever it is isn't the place where you actually go to patronize. So it makes sense that people will go to Spotify to go listen, or to go to a record store to buy a record after they hear it so many times and they need that sort of like additional thing. We look at other, streams of income for artists, merch, touring, other things like that, not just records, not just music. So TikTok's great from that discovery point of view. That's how we look at it, for sure. We have to make sure we have all our music up there, yeah.
Totally. So one of the other things that's really changed since the gatekeepers changed and now you can put your music up on a platform, like boom, right away, is like the big question is what's next, right? Because I think there was a second where everybody was like, I'm gonna put my music out there and then I'm gonna be famous. And it was like, what happened is it was like taking a rock and dropping it in the ocean. It was like, plop. Because there's how many songs being uploaded to Spotify every day? So 60,000, I mean, it grows and grows. It's just an ocean of music. So everybody pretty quickly realized, oh crap, it's not about just putting it on the shelf, putting it on the virtual shelf. It's about what do you do next? How do you get eyeballs or ears on that song? So obviously that had changed a lot of things for services, right? You guys had to come up with some thoughts.
Well, yeah, one of the big things, Rusty mentioned it with like a lot of people on Soundrop are so social platform focused, but I think a lot of it is that one big shift with music is making sure that the tracks are available for the fans to do with what they want to do with them. And that's one of the big things, especially see on TikTok, people are doing all sorts of things with the music duets, all sorts of, it's just, I think that's constantly being able to enable the fans to do those cool things that maybe the artist never even imagined or thought of, and then for us on the distribution side, being able to come alongside and help them monetize that activity because it's going to keep evolving as platforms evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think as one of the things that I always harp on with my artists is audience development or fan connection or however you want to sort of frame that, because you can have your music out there and anybody can go discover it and listen to it, but what artists are trying to do, at least the ones that I talk to, are build a fan base so that they can sustain their career. And it's actually, it feels like it's a big wild world out there to do it because like you put your song out there and it's just a little drop in a huge bucket, but if you don't really need hundreds of thousands of fans to sustain a career. If you have a core group of fans who will follow you, who will who will be there for you whatever you do next, that's kind of what, we sort of focus on. And actually been focusing on that for years, since the beginning of my career, working with a radio team who was always going to radio and the song was getting bigger than the artist itself. It was always my job as the marketing person to come back around and go, okay, well now we have to find their audience because nobody knows who they are. You gotta put the face to the name or the face to the song or whatever. So that's sort of the job that we do in the marketing space for independent artists.
Yeah, and I would say for building community, meeting your artists where they are, right? So Twitch and Discord are both huge platforms for Soundrop artists, which primarily, Discord is just a chat server. Like it's AOL, basically, but with emojis. Yeah, and so you have these rabid fan bases that are you get to interact with the artists that you love, and maybe they'll stream on Twitch. They'll show you the process of songwriting and things like that. And so I think for the future of music distribution is like how exactly do we tap into that? I don't know, but I'm really excited to find out.
That's really interesting. So would you conflate marketing with the creation of communities, like fan communities? Is that are they kind of the same, or do they have some differences?
I think so. I think that as the marketing landscape has gotten more and more digital, obviously that was a long time ago that it became digital, but as the algorithms of the social networks and stuff have become so powerful, that is really the main job. It's building an audience, it's finding fans, and a lot of the tactics that we use to do that and things that we encourage our artists to do, it's really not first nature for people who primarily call themselves musicians, right? You would get out there and you play your instrument and you make music. And now we kind of have to tell the artists you kind of have a second job. And your job is that you have homework and you have to do these things on these platforms to engage this algorithm. Just such a weird conversation, honestly. It's very non-creative, but we try to make it creative by sort of leaning into content strategy. Again, hate the word content, but what are you posting on social networks and how are you engaging with your fans and is it authentic to you and will people react to it? And those are the kinds of things that we worry about.
This is so crazy because it's I feel like, remember when everyone was like, artists don't need a label anymore. And we're like, yeah, you don't need a label anymore. But it's since that moment, there's just been more and more work for artists, right? Artists have to be awesome marketers and they have to be really great at social media. And then we haven't even gotten to the monetization piece, which is obviously next after, we've said the word monetization. And our whole next panel is going to be about monetization, so that's handy. But it really is about now all of a sudden, instead of one or two income streams, you have hundreds of income streams and you have to figure out how to stay on top of that. Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and knock independent distribution as we're all sitting on this panel, but I often compare it to TurboTax, right? I do my taxes and I know that there's help and that there's tool tips along the way and I try my very best to read all of them and understand them, but when I hit submit, I still go please don't audit me. It's the same for artists. They're like going through the process and they're doing it. They get their metadata and their all the stuff, and then they're like, please don't take this down, right? I mean, that's kind of like how you feel, and we totally understand that that's where artists are coming from. It's very difficult. So on top of that, we're like, oh, by the way, you got to understand all the algorithms, and you got to make TikTok videos, and you got to do this other nonsense. I mean, it's a lot.
Well, what's interesting with all that is that not only has distribution changed, but how artists are creating music has changed drastically in a lot of the online tools. And so the distribution process has become even more complex because there's so many different writers, people contributing beats, and so many layers of information that are so important in the process in order to keep your music from coming down. And that's something that gets more and more complex over time. So it's not just all the options of how fans are using it and platforms, but it's even just how people are creating music that's become incredibly complex.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that, the DSPs, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all these places, like, they are, actually taking in expanded credits, which is really nice. So I produced a noise record for a buddy. And now I'm officially a producer because Spotify says so. That's really cool. And you take a platform like Tidal, and you can actually search by engineers, or you can search by songwriters. And I think that's really powerful too.
Yeah, we're not going to do a credits panel today, but that is that's a whole panel unto itself. It's huge.
It's a huge missing piece of the distribution process, or just the DSP landscape.
And there's solutions in the marketplace, for collecting credits. The problem is that we have that disconnect, which is like a little bit of what we're talking about right now, which is artists, we want artists to create. We want artists to be creators. But it's like at the same moment, we also want them to be like hard-headed business people who are totally thinking about like the future monetization of this piece of art that I'm in the middle of creating. Which, like, I don't know about you guys, but when I was in a band, I was like, we were not thinking about the future monetization of this piece of art that we're creating. Yes?
May I ask a pertinent question?
Sure.
Okay. So for those of us that actually toured in the 80s full time at a pretty high level, and you had to show up, you had to learn your stuff, you had to be on time, you had to be good. Someone else did this promoting for you. How do you bridge that gap for those of us who are working on social media and working on this, who might be older than 30 or older than 40 or 50? What do you suggest? Because we don't sit on TikTok all day long. We have real jobs the rest of the time in order to fund our music. This is wonderful, fantastic information. But how can we fast track getting good at this without having to spend 36 hours a day at something we have yet to do?
I mean, I'm not a social media manager, but for me, as somebody who digests music in these different places, and as somebody who has seen artists on Soundrop do amazing things, it's authenticity and it's consistency. So thinking about, and what you post isn't necessarily super important. It can be just a photo, but as long as you're engaging your fan base, whatever that happens to be, and you're doing it on a regular basis so people don't forget about you. And cranking out singles is a very, very good way to do that as well. You don't have to do it every week. Maybe, I put out 5 singles last year, for example. But it's just a way of just staying in people's minds, when they think about, oh, I want to listen to this genre of music. Oh yeah, no, I remember, this single came out last week. Or I just saw a picture of a corgi and the song was playing in the background and I love this. So I'm gonna go seek it out once more. But just being yourself and just making sure that you're not constantly, not every day, but once a week, something like every Thursday maybe. Something like that. That's what I'd speak to.
I think as an independent artist, Portia mentioned that, independent distribution opened up. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of songs released every day. And it can be overwhelming as an artist, like, how am I ever going to compete with this? But I think what's also happened was a beautiful change for the artist is that you can build the career that you want. and you don't have to. I mean, all those mega stars that you look at, they've got massive teams and money behind them. You're never going to compete with that. And you don't need to, you don't have to. I think for an artist, oftentimes you look at those people and you just feel like it's impossible. But I think setting some real personal goals and career goals for yourself that are attainable and achievable and then push you and stretch you, but realizing that you're not going to be able to be all things at once. And ultimately, as an artist, because I'm in the same boat. I've been releasing music for 25 years. That's just understanding what you're trying to get out of what your passion is. And for you as an artist, sometimes just the fact that you recorded and released something in the world is awesome. And that may be all it goes to. And it's, for me, sometimes that's all I needed. I just needed to get that out of me. If people listen to it and love it, that's even better. You know, so sometimes you just have to appreciate the creation process and know that you get to do something as an artist that most people will never get to do. And that's make something that goes out into the world and can change people's lives. So that's how I think about it.
That's Portland.
I think the only thing that I would add to that is that Rusty mentioned this, and I think you did too, like about authenticity. It's very important because you kind of can't manipulate that like at the social networks. I mean, it's probably worth saying, and everybody's aware of this too, that the DSPs are also algorithms. So, you know, release schedule and speed of release and just making sure that you're constantly putting songs out there is really important. It's actually incredibly important to sustaining your business or your royalty revenue because people will be more likely to get notified when you release new music if they've listened to your music in a 30-day period and things like that. So it's important to know, but that's what we're here for. I mean, that's what the independent distribution companies, I think all of them have really strong, smart, savvy marketing teams and, you know, account management teams and people who will help you understand. You know, we do a ton of release planning with our artists. I mean, we like help them decide if it's this week or next week or the week after that is the right time based on what else is coming out and what we know about the traffic on the platforms and things like that. So it's important that's important as well. And then I have to say that like quality of music is still incredibly important. We talk a lot about technology now and music and it's like beep boop, but the act like if you actually put out a good song, that's incredibly important.
Yeah, your music should be good. That's one thing. It doesn't matter if there's 60,000 tracks a day. They gotta be good.
Yeah, 99% of the time, that's basically it.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I think is important and that's drastically changed with the streaming world is that just the act of releasing music is promotion because some of these platforms like Spotify and Amazon have tools that you log in and it'll push it to everybody that's following you every time you release something new. So I think it's become more important than ever to release music and keep that musical dialogue going with your fans. If you can't do anything else, just do that because that's something that the platforms are doing. And Erica's here from Amazon Music, and she's on a panel later that she could tell you all about what they're doing. They've got some cool tools to help, you know, that are free for you to use that push your music to people that are following you. Those algorithms that keep being talked about.
Yeah, you know. What, 10 years ago we were talking about pre-orders as being like very important, and now it's pre-saves, so that on release day it's already in your library, you know, on Spotify or on Apple Music, and that also gives you another avenue to promote, you know, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks out, however you want to do it. You can pre-save, you know, 1 to however many tracks. Yeah, so that's another thing to consider too.
I think it's also important, you know, to understand the landscape because I talked to a social media person not that long ago about, you know, I think it's overwhelming for artists to be like, well, where do I put my energy? You know, like, look at this landscape. What do I get up in the morning, I have my cup of coffee, and what the hell do I do? You know? And this person said, find the service that works for you, for your personality, for your, you know, for your audience, like who's out there that you connect with, right? Or that connects with you. And just focus on that one. You know, it's like maybe it's Instagram. Maybe, you know, you get a lot of response when you post pictures of your Courtney or whatever, you know? That have it be one thing. Don't try to be the jack of all every single, platform, because it's impossible and you'll quit because you'll be so miserable. You're trying to figure this all out. Mara.
Just a quick question. Music Portland and the ASMP and a bunch of other people, Tim is here taking pictures, fought hard to get the CASE Act passed, which protected copyrights of creative content. And it's interesting, as you're talking about, you can take a piece of this and you can take a piece of that and you can do that. It's not the corgis that we care about. It's when businesses identify that independent music is easy pickings because they don't have a big label behind them that'll come after them. Is there anything you guys do in that regard that kind of help to protect the intellectual property and the creative guts that have been poured out by these artists?
Behind the scenes, we have whole teams that are managing all of our digital assets on these platforms, making sure that they stay live. If there's a conflict, going through all of that to make sure that it's sorted out properly. So yes, we have a massive team that behind the scenes is making sure, one, we want to make sure the music is up and monetized, and but then all these different platforms, especially the social platforms, have very different monetization methods, some more developed than others, and things can get in conflict and nobody's making money. So yes, we're there trying to make sure that we sort those out. Rights disputes is something we deal with all the time.
Good, thank you.
And I think our next panel is going to address that a lot, because rights management is sort of, because no one's going to get paid if we don't know who owns what. And that's the province of the next panel. Any other questions? We might as well. Tyler.
I'm curious, I love all of these platforms, by the way. I think you guys are all doing a great job of what you do. I'm curious though, I know that for me personally, my two biggest places where my music exists themselves is on Beatport and TrackSource as a dance artist. And I know that none of you, maybe not, I don't know about Soundrop, but CD Baby and Soundcloud don't distribute to them. And I'm curious why.
We do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
And we're looking into Beatport, but it's so genre specific that the majority of our catalog isn't hip hop or dance music. So we want to be strategic for when we do launch.
It is true that it's a highly curated platform. They don't. They won't actually They don't even want to take everything. They just want what they
want what the DJs want.
Exactly.
And that's why we've never come to a deal with them, because they just want a very specific thing, and we try to work with folks that take our whole catalog because we want all our music to be monetized. Plus, when we go down that road of saying, oh, only this type of music can be on Beatport, we'll find that artists will do a country song and call it EDM just to get on Beatport, and you would not believe what we see people try to do behind the scenes that we have to comb through and filter out and fix. So there's that whole element to it as well.
Hi, what is TikTok trying to do with music distribution? Are they trying to do a certain type of music distribution?
They announced it. Honestly, every time I've seen a platform like that and try to do music distribution, usually a year later they're getting out of music distribution because they realize that they have to manage the relationship with all these artists, which is what all of us do. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, music distribution is really hard. And you can't just say, oh, we're going to do this now. To your point, Kevin, Spotify did it for 9 months? Something like that, and it was a beta program. We don't know what TikTok's gonna do. But ByteDance, that owns TikTok, also runs Rezo, which is a streaming platform I think that we all deliver to. So I don't have any expectations with them launching their own distribution service.
Usually when I see something like that, I think they're just interested in a small slice of artists, but then they realize they've opened up the floodgates to a whole lot of work to manage a lot of other things that they didn't realize we've already filtered out. But I don't know, we'll see what they do.
Anyone else? Questions? No? Okay. Well, thanks you guys. Super awesome to talk to you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah,